and I went to the Lions this time. And when I went to the Lions, that was also the same year that Darius Slay was drafted. So I was in the same room with Darius Slay, and obviously we went through drills together. I watched his feet, and I was like, okay, like I can compete. I'm there. Darius was, I think he's about 5'11", 6 feet. I'm about 5'9.5". So I was like, all right, he has a little bit more height than me. He's not stronger than me because not many rooms that I walk in, pound for pound, that there's anyone in there stronger than me. Pound for pound, like it's even if you put even Aaron Donald, right? If you go pound for pound, I'm not sure if Aaron Donald is stronger than me.
Tap in, yeah, you gotta tap in, yeah, you gotta tap in, yeah, we win, yeah, we done did it again.
Welcome everybody to the Next Level Podcast. I said the Next Level Podcast. I will be your host today, and also we have a great guest for you today. He played at a high school level, played at a college level, and also went over in the Japan Xleague. A lot of people don't know about that league, but he'll definitely let you know about it. And he performed at a high level over there as well, too. Welcome to the show, man. Alrilwan Adeyemi.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Get it.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir, man. I appreciate you coming out, man. Definitely giving some game for the youth, and also myself, man, because I'm definitely intrigued on where you actually been able to perform. Man, just to kick it off, ask some simple questions like, man, where did you start playing football?
Started playing football in Santa Monica, Southern California.
Okay.
I played a ton of sports growing up, but I picked up football. I remember the first football game I ever watched was the Raiders Super Bowl, Bucks Super Bowl. And that was the thing. And I was like, all right, I saw a lot of my friends from middle school, and they started playing Pop Warner, and I saw them going into high school, and football was going to be the sport to play. So I was like, all right, like this, this looks fun. Let's give it a shot. Before that, I played soccer, I played tennis, I played basketball, I played all sorts of sports, right? So I took a lot of the skills that I got from those sports and brought it onto football. Now with football is such an intricate sport, right? That you have to learn the playbook, you have to learn the formations, you have to learn really how to play football. Yeah. But when it comes to the skill set of football, I had that already because of everything that those other sports taught me. Tennis, you had lateral movements. Soccer, you had agility and speed and endurance. With basketball, you had the ability to get off the ground quickly. And then with other ball sports as well, you have hand-to-eye coordination. So all those things you can use in football in any capacity. The thing that I'd never done though, which I do now, is I'd never run backwards, right? Which is what I do now, backpedal. So there was an introduction to that as well. But with anything, when it comes to movement and mechanics, it's just all about rhythm, right? So once I learned the rhythm of backpedaling, everything was smooth from then on. Yeah.
Okay. What age did you start playing?
So I started playing ball at 14. So I've been, this is my 18th year of football. It's, I've dedicated a lot of time, effort, and energy and money to football. And so this is, it's coming on 20 years, and I'm very thankful to have played this long. I know some people start playing football at the age of 7, right? Some people start playing at 10, some people start playing at 11, 12, 13. So I started playing at 14 and then played 4 years of high school ball, so.
What was your environment growing up? What was your environment growing up? Did you have two parents? Were they together? Were they instilled in your life a lot? Tell us a little bit about that, man, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I grew up with growing up, I didn't live with my parents originally. I grew up with aunts and uncles. My parents were in the United States, but I lived in Nigeria. They wanted me to get a little bit of that culture, They wanted me to get a little bit of that humility. So the age of 10 was the age that they felt was a good age to bring the family back together and to continue from there. But from the age of 10, lived with both parents, and it was a good. Very thankful for that. Sometimes you don't know what you have until you get a little older. Right. I'm very, very thankful of that, and I had a perfect balance of both mom and dad. It takes a man to raise a man. But essentially, not saying anything about single parent households because they do a fabulous job as well. But football also adds that extra structure to it. And you see a lot of single parent households, they'll gravitate towards, their head football coach as a father figure in their lives. So I was very thankful to have both my dad and my mom in the house. And that was a very good experience growing up. So they taught me values. They taught me hard work. They taught me resilience. They taught me, you're going to fail, right? That's what life is about. You're going to fail, but you just keep going and keep stacking the days, So, yeah.
Can you tap in a little bit to how that being in Nigeria, correct?
Yeah.
And 100%. Translating or moving over to, the United States. Was it an easy adaptation for you, or was it totally different?
To be honest with you, when I came to the States, I was more restricted as a child than growing up in Nigeria. The Nigeria that I grew up in, which is it's very different than Nigeria of today, but the Nigeria that I grew up in, kids could roam, right? You could go 2, 3 hours, 4 hours away from home, and then just be back by dinner time. And when I came to the States, I was 10 when I came to the States, and the first time that my parents had to leave the house, they were like, "You need a babysitter." And I looked at it, I was like, "A babysitter? Like I'm a grown man. Like I'm, like in Nigeria, I had responsibilities that wouldn't be afforded to you until you were 18 in the United States. So coming to I remember one time I was riding my bike from the house to the library in the U.S. and I was on the street and I was riding. I didn't think anybody was watching me, right? And then I get back home and someone had saw me and told my parents that I was riding a little wild on the streets. And my parents were like, "Yeah, you need to be careful out there. Like someone said they saw you and you were riding a little wild." And I was like, "What kind of country is this? Like, I'm a child. Let me be a child. Like, what is this? So those were some of the things in terms of just some of the dynamics with the other children, because I didn't live with my parents. I learned how to make friends very quickly, and sports was one of the biggest ways that I made friends. Essentially when you grow up in a place where you don't have your immediate support, and I had support system. Right? I had my uncles, I had my aunts, I had my grandparents, I had my nieces and nephews, I had my cousins. But when you grow up in a place where you feel like you are one of one in your family unit, you have to learn how to make friends very, very quickly. And so those skills, I brought it over to the United States, and making friends became as easy as can you play, right? Yeah, 100%. And saying that's the one thing I learned about the United States is that, like, when you get on the playground in the 5th grade, right? It's, he can kick, he can run, he can jump, he can shoot. Cool. Like, we're friends, right? Those are the things that bring you together. And then they're like, we play ball together at recess. So come sit with us at lunch, right? Boom, you're friends. 20 years later, that's still your homeboy, So
if you're good, that's I know that guy. That's my homie. I want him to sit next to me.
That's it. That's it.
So you started playing football when you got over in the States, correct?
Yeah, I started playing football when I got over to the States. I remember holding my first football like a loaf of bread, right? Memories still stick with you. But the experience and learning the game, it was again. I had the skill sets that I brought over from other sports. I just needed to fine tune it and adapt it and craft it into into football. So
what made you stick with football? What was about football? Because you say you played multiple sports, correct?
Yeah,
that's the case. Then what brought you to love and hone in on football itself?
But obviously, in high school back in the day, now they try to confine kids to one sport, right? You're a football player, you play football year round. You do passing league, you do this, you do that, right? Your basketball play, you play travel basketball, you do this all year round, but in high school, then it was football in the fall, basketball in the winter, and track and field in the spring, right? So you were a 3-sport athlete.
Right.
I think come sophomore time, it was football and track, right? So limited to 2. And I limited it to 2, not necessarily because I didn't want to play a third sport, but it was because it was for 2 reasons, right? It was for educational reasons, and it was because I wanted to, I felt like I had to make up time with all the other kids that had been playing football for so long. I didn't feel that I had the time. So I needed to hone in on my skills a little more. I needed to develop a little bit. I needed to increase my football knowledge a little more. So that's why I decided on 2 sports going forward. And I wasn't that great at basketball. I could have played sophomore basketball and then try to play varsity maybe later on, but I just decided that I was going to hone in on football and track and field. And I took a liking to the sport because of the intricacies of it. The position that I played fit my personality very well because there was there's a lot of critical thinkings that go on between whistles, right? There's a lot of, okay, what formation are they in? What down is it? What quarter is it? What part of the field are they in? What hash are they on? Is it 2x2, 3x1, 4x1? Is it what do they like to do in these sets? But the minute that the ball is put on the ground and red 80, right? You throw, boom, you seal that. And it's like whatever information you've gathered from whistle to whistle, now you take that information and you have 5 seconds to make a decision, and I love that aspect about it. So that, I stuck to football because I thought that it fit my personality. The aggression part of it, I needed to learn because I was coming from sports they were contact sports, but football is a collision sport. So there was that extra level of aggression that I needed to learn. And I think the more time that I devoted in the weight room, the more that I realized that I could actually use my body to my benefit.
So when you first started playing football, correct? What did you think? Were you automatically that guy? Like, did you already have the talent immediately, or did it take time?
It took time. It took time. I would say it wasn't probably until the middle of my junior year when things actually clicked. I played varsity as a junior. I was on varsity as a sophomore as well, but I didn't play that much, and I played freshman ball. Freshman year I played freshman ball. Sophomore year I played JV and varsity. So that being you play the JV games, and then on Fridays you would suit up for the varsity games and run down on kickoff. And then as a junior, I played varsity full time and I was a starter. And that was when things kind of started to click a little bit and started to get my feet wet. And as a senior, obviously things took off and I had, 8 interceptions in a season. And
soft flex. I mean, that was that's real flex, and it was a soft flex at the same time, man.
Yeah. And the funny thing is I had 8 interceptions, but I dropped 4. So I could have led State of California actually that year in interception fight. All the interceptions that were 2 were out of bounds. 1, I caught it, boom, hit the ground, and the ball just rolled out. I hit the ground hard. But if I had gotten my hands on the other 4, I would have led the State of California that year in interceptions. So yeah.
The team that you played for was that's high school good, or was that like a mediocre high school?
We were solid. I think we had a good group of guys. We had.
I was asking, were you guys putting out people to the next level as far as college, or was it?
We had a couple guys. We had 1 or 2 guys per year that went D1. Obviously, from my class, we had a quarterback that went D1. We had a running back that was supposed to go D1, but he transferred to another school. He transferred to Crespi, and so we, so that year we had, I think, 1 or 2 guys that went D1 that year, and then every year was always 1 or 2, and then we found a way to fill in the roster with other solid players, guys that weren't going to play at the next level, but that had played football for 8 to 10 years, so they understood the game and they understood, what it took. So
they fit the system.
100%.
With you, I was going to say, when did you start going when did you start getting invites to, or not invites, but interest in schools? Like when did they start getting interest in you? Junior year, of course, with the eight interceptions, or was it
Senior year, senior year interception. So senior. So I had if I had had 8 interceptions my junior year, I probably would have got a college scholarship. You know, but the interceptions came as a senior. In my senior year, I played safety. So a lot of schools, when they looked at me, they were like, "Oh, you're kind of a small safety." But my true position was corner. But I needed to play safety in our defense because safeties in our defense kind of played like corner. And so we ran a defense that we thought was best for our personnel that we had. They put bigger guys at corners, they can jam up receivers, and then they let our safeties, they put smaller guys as safeties. That way we can cover. So it was kind of like a role reversal. But yeah, I had some invites. I went to a couple combines as a junior. And then I think going into my senior year, we went up to Oregon State and spent a couple of days there. And we participated in their little camp, the little camp that they had. So that was.
So you did attend camps, correct?
Yeah, I did. I attended one camp, the Oregon State camp in Corvallis. And then I attended a couple combines, the typical, run 40s, bench press, do some one-on-ones type of thing. So,
do you believe camps and these camps? Do you believe camps are important for younger athletes?
Yeah. I think today it's a very different landscape, and there is so many more opportunities and so many more ways to get exposure. They have some of these 7-on-7 things that go on year round now. That's really great for exposure. Yeah. I think if you're looking to apply for a job, right, you want to present yourself and you want to be in front of as many recruiters as possible. Right. Same thing goes for football. If you have the opportunity to attend camps, by all means, attend a camp. Because you put yourself in the best situation to be seen by the most eyes. If you don't get invited to the camps, then there are other ways to do it. There's obviously, you can put your tape out there on YouTube. You can, do some of these 7-on-7 things that people do now. You can even some of the guys that will just train with some of these off-season trainers. Like some of those trainers have plugs in college, and they'll say, "Hey, look, I know you guys aren't recruiting this guy, but he has great feet, he has great hands, and he does this and he does that." Then the buzz start. So however you can create your buzz is the way to go. So just find what works the best for you and go from there.
How was your grades in high school?
Oh, I come from a Nigerian family, so we don't play about that. Yeah, we don't. Immigrant parents, right? They don't. They want you to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or an accountant, right? And the reason being is that immigrant families see education the same way kids from the inner city see sports, right? Kids from the inner city see sports as their way out, whereas immigrant families see education as your way out. Because the reason that most immigrant parents instill in you that you have to be one of these 4 professions is that they believe that those professions are recession proof. And they believe that you will always have a job no matter what. And because for them, when they came to the States, they were the ones who made it. So they were the ones who had to send money home. Right. So there was no excuse for them not to make it. So for you, it's the same thing that they want from you. So if you know that you are not going to be one of those 4 things, you have to make sure that you excel in whatever field you do. So that's why you'll see a lot of immigrant children that don't go into those 4 fields. You can see them; they're usually overachievers in whatever field they decide to go into, because they want to. It is a way to thank their parents for the sacrifices that they made. And the opportunities that they gave them. Because again, a lot of immigrants, when they come to the States, they have no choice. It's you got to get it. You got to get it now. You got to send money home. Whereas the next generation, they have more of a choice. You can major in whatever you want to major in. You can study whatever you want to study in. Whereas your parents decide you got to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or an accountant, because you got to make money now and you got to send it back. So grades were very important in our household, and yeah. and just again, it was for us. It was all about effort, and intent, and effort, right? So whether you got a 4.0 wasn't that important, but did you put the maximum effort in to get a 4.0? Now, if you fell short and got a 3.9, 3.8, 3.7, that's acceptable on Monday and Tuesday, but on Wednesday and Thursday, they want to see a 4.0. So, so.
That's big, man. That's big, man. There's a lot of college athletes, or not college athletes, high school athletes that didn't get the opportunity to go to the next level because of grades, or had to go a longer route because of grades, man. And the fact that your household and your structure imputed how important grades were. I wish we had that with some of our other athletes who kind of fell short of their dreams,
Yeah, but I think it's important for kids to see grades as a means to an end, right? If this is what you want to do, you just got to put up, you got to get through this phase of life, right? You don't have to get a 4.0, but you have to be serviceable, right? You have to get a 3.0, a 3.2, like, especially in high school, right? A lot of it is just effort. It's not like how smart you are. A lot of life is not how smart you are. It's about effort and connection. That's all it is, right? So if you just apply yourself in high school and you stick with the teacher, and the teacher sees you trying, they'll offer you extra credit. They'll offer you different opportunities to be able to get where you want to go. So all it is effort. The same, if you take 5% of the effort that you're putting in, football, and put it into grades, football will work out because the grades are there. And give yourself, you never want to be, it's never your job to stop yourself. So like, don't limit your opportunities when it comes to that, right? Because that's all you're doing is shooting yourself in the foot. So. Right.
And I definitely can attest for that. I shot myself in the foot when I was in high school. I told this on another podcast, but I'm gonna say it again. I had the opportunity to speak with USC. They came out to see my quarterback, because he was getting scholarships from everywhere. And I actually had a good game in the playoff season. It was in our playoff run. I had a great game. They asked to speak to me, spoke to me, and then asked to see my transcripts. Right after they see my transcripts, man, they took off before I could say, like, you know what I'm saying? They just took off, and I never heard from them again. And this was around the time when Reggie Bush and Lindell White was about to go to turn pro. So, just looking back at it, man, I had the opportunity to go to USC. I shot it down just because I was being a knucklehead, wanted to hang out, wanted to have fun. Didn't take the classroom serious like I should have. But not saying that you need to go a longer. Nothing wrong with going a longer route. I think I needed to go a longer route. I think I needed to grow a lot more, learn about the game a lot more. And I think at every level of where I attended was very great for me. Just a learning process, a growing process, and just traveling and getting out of Ohio versus, staying and being so locked into what I know and what I think is the world. So I think that was a great situation for me, just, going a longer route, because I was able to learn, grow, and apply it. Luckily, I went to Ventura, learned. It was an uphill battle. But I was able to fight through it. I had tunnel vision. You got to have tunnel vision when you're trying to get to where you're trying to go. But with you having the grades and performing like you did, especially your senior year, did you get scholarships coming out of high school?
No, I didn't. Talking about going the long route, right? Junior college was the long route for you, right? Going to a non-scholarship school was the long route for me. So I had offers for preferred walk-on spots at different places. Villanova was one of those places. San Diego State was one of those places. Oregon State was one of those places. But for me, it was, if you're going to walk on in those places, why not go to, because you're not going to be on a scholarship anyway, right? Why not go to a competitive non-scholarship school and that's relatively close to home, but that'll give you a ton of academic money. So the academic money that I got from the University of San Diego allowed me to go to school basically like I was on scholarship. So I had to take out.
Before you go past that, bet on yourself in the academics, and then you also bet on yourself in football. So you put two and two together and made it fuse together instead of just focusing on football. You know, so
100%.
that's the big thing right there. Like a lot of people just focus on football, but you had structure to put in your mind. You want to play football, and you also want to have a life outside of football. So let's attack this with the best all around look for myself in the future.
I think the one thing that that kids have to understand, and this is probably speaking to parents right now, is that you have to look for the best opportunity for your kids. And at the time, the reason for choosing the University of San Diego was I understood the dynamic of the school. And the dynamic of the school was that it was a small, private, almost all white student population school, right? So they're always looking at a way to increase their diversity. So when they talk about diversity, what do they talk about, right? They want kids that are smart, but they don't have money. So for the most part, they'll find money for you if you're smart enough, right? It's the same things that Ivy Leagues do, right? If you are a genius and you don't have money and your parents, make under a certain amount, they'll cover your tuition, So that's basically kind of what USD kind of did for me, is that by the time you combine the federal Pell Grant, by the time you combined the school grant, you combine some of these other grant for being a good student. You combine an alumni grant. You combine a booster grant. You combine all these grants. Before you know it, you have 80% of what you need to go to school. And then every year you just have to figure it out, right? If you get good enough grades, they'll renew it. If you don't get good enough grades, they'll take it away. Right? So there was a semester where grades wasn't up to par. They took the grant away. Then grades became up to par again. They gave it back, right? So it's those things. You learn those things very, very quickly. And obviously the 80% was covered, and then the 20% needed to come from student loans and things like that. But when you talk about a $50,000 a year school, right? Those things, 80% of $50,000, like you're getting really, really, really good money. So at the end of it, when you come out of it, you're like, all right, I have to pay 20%. Okay. Maybe that's not so bad, for a top flight education. So
would you, going into that school, did they have a good program, outside of grades and academics? Did the football program attract you, or
they had at the time they had an excellent program, and they still do today. But the program at the time, they had the coach that had just left the school. You'll probably recognize the name, Jim Harbaugh. He wasn't there when I was there, but he had just left. He was a year removed, and that's when he went to Stanford. And he went from Stanford to the 49ers, and from the Niners back to Michigan, right? So he was there, and he ran a structure that was very, very, very competitive. And they had a quarterback at the time, Josh Johnson, get drafted by the Tampa Bay Bucks at the time. So they had a history of if you're good enough, they'll find you. So that's kind of what I also bet on. Is that, they had a history of getting guys to the league, and if I'm good enough, like I'll go, and there was some connections there, and obviously we had an excellent coaching staff my first year as well, and subsequent years going forward. I remember our linebackers coach now is the head coach at University of Troy, Troy University. Our defensive coordinator came from Nebraska. Our head coach came from UCLA. So we had a really good track record of our DB's coach. My second year is now at Boise State. So we've had guys. Our offensive line coach, my third year, has been the Tennessee Titans offensive lines coach for a few years, right? So you see the rushing attack with the big bag Derrick Henry, right? He's their offensive line coach. So we had a ton of talent, when it came to the University of San Diego, because it was a small school, right? It was always the stepping stone for guys that were getting into coaching. So it was never expect a great coach to stay at the university for a long time. You'll maybe get a year out of them, but because they're a great coach, you better soak up everything that you can get in a year.
Right.
So in my 4 years, I have 4 different DB coaches that taught 4 different styles. So I learned, soft press, hard press, NFL press, lateral steps, shuffle, throw your hands. So I learned different techniques.
Learning,
my third,
learning those 4. Did that help you translate in any program that you?
I think it helped me. It helped me learn the game a little better, and it put tools in my toolbox that I can take out at any time. So depending on the receiver that I'm playing, I'll use 1 of 4 techniques on them. Right. So if I think that you have great hands, I'll use a certain technique. If I think that you have terrible feet, I'll use a certain technique. If I think that you're quick and you're a start and stop guy, I'll use a certain technique. If I think that you can't get off the line, I'll use a certain technique. So having learned those 4 techniques has been really instrumental in the ability to play and to continue to play and to teach, right? Because some kids are good with certain things. Some kids are really, really good lateral guys, and they're not so good with their hands. They don't want to be real physical with you, but they want to be able to mirror you and stay in front of you. Some kids, they don't want to move their feet; they just want to throw their hands, right? So you got to teach them the boxing technique, right? It's throw your hands, throw your jabs, throw your jabs, throw your jabs, throw your haymaker, take them out of the play. So yeah.
When you went all 4 years.
I went all 4.
Did you
started all 4 years too? Yeah.
You started all 4 years he started all 4 years as a freshman. He started sophomore, started junior, started senior, started. Now, with what was your best year?
My best year statistically, my freshman year was an amazing year. My junior year was an amazing year. My senior year was a good year. My sophomore year we didn't win as much my sophomore year. So I would say 3 out of 4 years were great years, and then the fourth being the second year was a good year. So I put together a pretty solid career. And after a while, teams stopped throwing the ball to my side, but I was still able to end up as the school leader in interceptions. I was tied with the school leader in interceptions. So it was great.
That's a solid 3-4 years, man.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you. So after the college, did you get opportunities right out the gate? What happened? Did you get any tryouts? Let us know a little insight on that.
So I came out, obviously I had a pretty good college career. But one of the things that there were a few things that went against me, but God's will is God's will, right? That's how things are going to play out the way they're going to play out. I came out the lockout year. So that was the year that they redid the CBA. Cam Newton went number 1 overall. So 2012 was the year that I came out. Now I was coming from, it was a condensed off season. So scouts really, they needed to get to their meat and potatoes very, very quickly. They couldn't they didn't have time to go to all these small schools and do all these little things and find the diamond in the rough and do all these things. But I came out that year. I had a great pro day. I remember my agent, because I was coming from a small school, right? I remember I didn't have an agent, but I had an opportunity to train with a guy named Ryan Flaherty out of San Diego. He's now the head strength and conditioning coach at Nike headquarters. Not Nike, store, like Nike headquarters. And I remember, and Ryan used to partner with George Whitfield, the quarterback's coach, right? So Andrew Luck's, the Cam Newtons, all the guys that came through George also trained with Ryan. But the year that I came out was Ryan's first year doing this, and I didn't have an agent at the time. And Ryan was like, "Just come train with me." Like I had a couple friends training with me. Like, come train with me, and we'll see if we'll invite a couple agents to the training sessions, and if they like you, you'll probably get an agent. And I was like, "All right, Ryan." Like, yeah, I appreciate that. So Ryan really hooked me up when it came to that. And through that, one of the agents that was representing one of the other players, like he came to one of the workouts, was like, "Okay, like small school guy, like you can be our little diamond in the rough, But he was like, "I'm not going to sign you yet, though. But Ryan was like, we'll charge you like something small. We'll charge you like pennies, right? And we'll let but the guy was like, "Oh, I'll kind of pay for it." I was kind of like a throw on or add in to the training session, and worked hard, and the pro day was going to be like my first interview, right? It was going to be not only my interview for my agent, but it was going to be the interview for the scouts. So the agent was basically like, if you perform really well on pro day, then I'm going to sign you, kind of thing, you know? So he had a contract like ready. Like the minute the pro day was over, he was like, let's go to lunch, put the contract on the table, and I signed it. He was like, you know, because he saw the numbers, right? The numbers were great.
Man, if you remember,
I did the San Diego State Pro Day. So like, cause our school, we had a small school pro day. But I did the San Diego State Pro Day. And I had tweaked my hamstring, on our pro day, which was 2 weeks before the San Diego State Pro Day. So I didn't run. The only thing I did was bench press at our pro day. So I had all the energy. On our pro day, I did 25 reps and 225. That's all I did.
Hey,
you know, and then 2 weeks later was when I redid everything again in front of scouts. And starting with bench, where I did 24 reps that day on 225. I ran 240s, 444 and 442.
442.
444 and 442.
You got blazing speed, man. Blazing speed.
Yeah. On pro day, you can find these stats on and I'll send it to you. 444, 442. I went 6'8". Either 6'8" or 6'9" on the L. I went 4.2 on the short shuttle. I went 34 or 36 on the vert. And then on the broad, I think I went right below 10, like 9-11 or something like that. You know, so those were the numbers. So when obviously
that's combine numbers right there, man.
If in today's social media age, a small school guy that puts up those numbers at the combine, I would have been drafted. Now small school is okay. Like small school is a thing now, right? North Dakota State. Right there. That's the popular exactly. Thing. Everyone's looking for the diamond. Can he play or can he not play? Right. Back then, football was a bigger people's game. You know, so they were like, you know, we only see you as a nickel and as a nickel only. You know, now you have guys in the league where it's just like, can you cover these receivers or can't you cover these receivers? So it's more of a matchup game today. But again, you don't control when you were born. You only control what you control. So, so we did that. And after the pro day, I was invited to I wasn't drafted, went undrafted. And I went undrafted and didn't even have a preferred free agent deal. So I went to the Giants minicamp and went to the Giants minicamp. But that was the year that the Giants were coming off the Super Bowl run. So they had like 12 corners on the roster. You know, so like it was just like if we sign you out of these 3-day minicamp, you're going to be a body in camp. And then we'll see where you go from there. Came out of that, didn't get signed, went back home, waiting for a call. No one called. How did that make you feel? What was some of the? It hurt. It hurt. You know, it hurt. It made me question, you know, my decision to not leave USD, because my second year, right after my great freshman year, I had a choice. I had an opportunity to leave because the coach that had recruited me he got a new job at the University of Washington. So he was like, hey, look, like, I don't know if I can offer you a scholarship, but you can come up there and you're a baller. So you'll get a scholarship in 6 months to a year. They'll see, you know? So I was like, all right, like, let me think about it. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I just, finish what I started here. I got a great thing going. So
I like how you brought that up, because that comes to my next question, man. Yeah. With the game being so different now, the fact that you can go to a school and then also transfer at the drop of a dime is still not set out.
Yeah. I probably would have done it today.
So you do recommend these kids that have low opportunity to go D1 to go to these smaller schools, ball out, and then transfer or stay where they are? You think it would be better for them?
I have an advice for both, right? The one thing that works for them in terms of not transferring is that they will truly find you from a small school today. Like they will truly find you from a small school. So if you have a good thing going to the small school, stay, finish it out, and they'll find you. You'll get opportunities. But if it's if you believe or you think that you have the opportunity to go play somewhere, and it's always been your childhood dream to play at, I don't know, you're Rudy and you've always wanted to play at Notre Dame, right? then by all means, you only get one life. Go ahead and go ahead and do that. But again, make sure that it's the right college experience for you, and make sure that it's the right opportunity for you. I think if I were coming out today in a similar situation, I'd probably do a HBCU. I think that would be something that I would probably look at, because the talent level there and the coaching level there is really exposed their programs and what they're doing. So, and I play skill position, right? So like there's skill positions everywhere, right? So yeah, I would probably look into that. So
I think if you did have the opportunity to transfer from a small school to the bigger school, just make sure you ask the questions, man. Like where I'm at on a depth chart. Don't run away from competition. If there is competition there, make sure.
If you're transferring, all you know is competition, because they're not going to give you anything if you're transferring from a small school to a big school. Like they didn't go out, sit in your parents' living room and decide that they were going to give you a scholarship with NIL. You're saying I want the opportunity to compete. That's all you're saying. You are basically a free agent. You are basically a practice squad player that's trying to make the roster.
Right.
So when you transfer, you have no choice but to compete. So if you know that that's what you want to do, you got to understand that there's a hard grind that comes from that, but you will be a better person for it because of the adversity that's coming your way.
Right.
So
never run from adversity, man. Adversity will make you the man you want to be in the future, man. It's going to benefit you in the long run. So
100%, 100%.
Whatever you're going through, strive through it with your head up, chest up.
Yeah. Don't also, also a good advice is don't also go out of your way to seek adversity, unless it's controlled adversity, right? The controlled adversity of practice is when a coach is like, restarts practice after 30 minutes. That's controlled adversity, right? But don't just decide that, a life adversity is like, oh, I'm going to go do something dumb because I won it the hard way, right? No, don't do that. Make smart decisions. And if adversities do come, handle it and persevere and keep going.
I want to get back to, you said that you didn't get a call after the camp, and you were going through that mental battle as far as did I make the right decision or not? How long did you sit in that stage? And then after that, when did you start? Actually, just how long did you sit in that stage? Yeah.
Well, it was always you didn't get a call, but you were always working. The one thing that I had built enough good relationships at the university that I understood that I wanted to continue to pursue this for at least a few more years. And so I asked the university if I can work at the university and also be able to use their facilities to continue to train. So I would work at the university and then I would train either before work or after work. So I stayed in.
How is that presented to you? Like how do you go in there and ask that? Like do you actually?
I had a work study because I went to a non-scholarship, right? So part of my scholarship package was a work study. So I had a work study as a student athlete. So I asked if they had enough money in the budget for me to be an employee after, similar to what I did for the work study, but as an employee, as an assistant to the person that I worked for. So they were like, yeah, we have enough money.
For the viewers, listen to this, because if it doesn't work out for you, you can do the same thing he did. So listen to this story now.
Yeah. So I had a work study, and after I was like, hey, do you guys have enough money in the budget for me to be an assistant to our athletic equipment guy? And they were like, sure, we have some money in the budget, but we only have these many hours for you to work. And I was like, okay, that'll be enough to pay my rent. And then everything else, I'll figure it out. So I would do little side jobs. I would coach kids to make a little extra money on the side. I would, and so that's the way we went with making money. And then after that went on, but I knew that was temporary, right? That was only going to be for that year. And then coming out of the next year, I asked around, I asked the coach, I was like, can I do another pro day? And they were like, sure, like you can, of course you can do another pro day. So I got an opportunity to get in front of the scouts again. Again, I was able to do the USD pro day and the San Diego State pro day again. So I was able to do that, got in front of scouts again. And this time I got another opportunity and I went to the Lions this time. And when I went to the Lions, it was another 3-day mini camp type thing. And, so after that, though, on the second day of mini camp, the defensive back coach called me up to the board and he said, hey, drop the defense we learned yesterday. I was like, sure. And so I went up to the board. I dropped the defense. On the side of it, I made little tabs for all the adjustments. And he was impressed. He was like, look, we drafted a corner. We got a lot of corners in this room in mini camp. We don't know. We don't have a spot for you, but you're a smart kid. And there's always room for smart special teams kids in the NFL. And I was like, okay. And he was like, go talk to the special teams coach and see what comes out of it. Out of the end of that mini camp, that was also the same year that Darius Slay was drafted. So I was in the same room with Darius Slay with the Detroit Lions. He was there.
Before you go forward, man, how is being in that same, like, okay, so you have some great DBs at the same time you're a great DB yourself in your mind and actually in real life. So what are some of the thought processes? Some of the thought process that go through in your head about, they got a great DB. Will I have opportunity to play? Like what's some of the logic that's going through your head right then and there?
No, I felt no type of way about it. I was like, well, he played at Mississippi State. He was drafted in the first round or early second. I think he was like the 33rd pick, early second round. I was like, he deserved it. He's their cornerback of now and perhaps of the future. And then so I felt no type of way about it. I didn't feel that I was competing with him. I didn't, I felt like I was competing just because you have to, when it comes to achieving, right? You have to start knocking off little dominoes before you can get to the bigger dominoes. You can't just be like, I'm aiming for the big one, right? That's too big a target. So my target wasn't Darius Slay. My target was, how do I beat the other guy that's in this mini camp that we're trying to get signed out of these 3-day mini camp. So that was my target at the time. And I felt, and obviously we went through drills together. I watched his feet and I was like, okay, like I can compete. I'm there. Darius is, I think he's about 5'11", 6 feet. I'm about 5'9.5". So I was like, all right, he has a little bit more height than me. He's not stronger than me because not many rooms that I walk in pound for pound that there's anyone in there stronger than me. Pound for pound. Like it's, even if you put even Aaron Donald, right? If you go pound for pound, I'm not sure if Aaron Donald is stronger than me. Pound for pound, though, I'm not saying like the overall, because if you look at, some of the, when I go into a weight room, you look at some of for a 5'9.5", 181 pound frame, there's a lot of force and power that comes from it. Thank God for that. Part of it is genetics, but part of it, a lot of it is also hard work, right? So there were certain gifts and traits that I felt that I had that I could stay and I could compete. And then, but coming out of that,
how important is the weight room, man? Because I hit the weight room, but I hit the weight room just because we needed to hit the weight room as far as in the coach obligated us time to hit the weight room, and if I didn't hit the weight room, I gotta hear his mouth. But hindsight, I wish I would have hit a little more. It would have made me more efficient. I wish I would have took more recovery as far as in taking that recovery more, making it more important in my daily structure or daily habit. Because man, coming off a long week, a big time game, performing well, with you being efficient in the weight room, and then also recovery habits, your body will be able to be more fine tuned in those situations, kind of adapt much quicker or recover much quicker than just sitting on the couch or not rolling out the knots or working out the knots and bumps and bruises. So when did you start taking it serious, and then how did that help your performance?
I've always taken the weight room seriously. Ever since my 9th grade year, the weight room has always been important because I felt that what I lacked for not having played football since I was 7, I needed to make up in other ways. So the weight room, I felt like I can control that 100%. And I felt like if my legs were stronger, I can run faster, I can jump higher. If my upper body was stronger, I can push people around. I could be stronger in my press technique. I can do some of these things that you needed to do in football. So I've always taken the weight room very, very seriously, and I've always worked towards that. I think that the weight room is you have to, especially the way that weight training is done today, right? It's tailored to everyone's body. Everyone doesn't need to go in there and do the meat and potatoes, right? Bench, squat, deadlift, right? And cleans for us. But whatever, if you're a quarterback, right, make sure your shoulders are healthy. If you are a running position, so DBs, receivers, skill players, make sure that you are flexible, make sure that your hamstrings are healthy, make sure that your hip flexors are healthy. Soft tissues are the big things that, that go for those guys. We call them fast people problems for a reason, right? Your calves, your hamstrings, your groins, fast people problems. You don't want fast people problems. So it's, and if you're a big guy, you got to make sure that you're strong. Shoulders are strong, hips are strong, back is strong. You got to make sure that overall everything is strong. Listen to your strength and conditioning coach and make sure that you are doing things that really benefit you and your body. And incorporating, you got to have good sleeping habits, and you got to eat well as well. You got to eat well. And I know not everyone has access to the best of foods, but within a food desert, you also can find good nutrition within a food desert.
Right. Totally agree, man. Totally agree. So with you having that great structure in the weight room, did that carry over with the dieting as well, or did it take a longer process for you to kind of dive into the dieting as well?
I mean, it's I wouldn't say I understood nutrition until probably my sophomore or junior year in college, but I was lucky enough to have had great influences around me. And when I was in college, our university offered a really good dining experience. So you always had a choice to choose between healthy and not healthy. And we all kind of went with, I was around a good group of guys that always chose healthy. So I just kind of gravitated towards that. But obviously, going to school in San Diego, Mexican food is hitting, right? So you gotta get your Mexican food fix in, so yeah, that was that. But I really understood nutrition my junior year in college.
You saying that though, the people that you are around can definitely influence you.
100%.
For great or worse, for great or bad. So 100%. The fact that you was around people that were tailored to what you were trying to do in the future, as far as eat better, sleep better, progress a lot better. They were able to influence you in the right direction. So it goes hand in hand. Kind of cut off the people that are bad influences, or kind of have that conversation with them to change their habits up so that you guys can be on the same path. And if that doesn't set right with them, then where y'all stand. Y'all can still be friends, but y'all gotta be friends from a distance, because you have a future that you're trying to attain. If you hang with that person consistently on a consistent basis and it's not fruitful, hey man, kiss that dream goodbye, or it's gonna be a longer process for you.
100%.
But with you now, that's your second camp, and you had some great news, but nothing really came from it. What was next, man?
So during that same time, before I went to camp, there was a few Japanese coaches came down to our university to study game as part of their American tour.
So how do you get in touch with these people though? That's the thing. How do you get them?
It was God, chance, faith, luck. Right? So they came down to our university to study the game more, because our safety the year before had gone to Japan to play. So they came down while the year that I told you I was working at the university, they came down to study the game. One of our coaches brought him down to the place where I was working. He's like, hey, this is this player. He's this, these are his numbers. This is his highlight tape. I know you guys aren't looking for some, but if there's any opportunities for him, Coach Sam Ano, he was like, let him know. So I met him, shook their hand, thanked them for the opportunity. They reached out to another team for me, and this is the team that I've been on ever since. And I never intended to play football in Japan, but I was open to the idea and the opportunity. And so when they said, this team now Fujitsu, when they said, we'd like to bring you out to Japan for spring break to work out. And I was like, okay, sure. It's an opportunity to get a passport. It's an opportunity to go to a foreign country. Let's do it.
So this is the second year out, correct?
This is the second year out.
Yeah. So first year you got can't invite. Second year you got a camp invite. Nothing came from those two, but you were still able to still have that tunnel vision. Like, I still want to do this.
You're going through it. Yeah.
Doing it, and you were able to get the opportunity to go to Japan. Now, I know that is a welcoming, exciting, opportunity.
Yeah. But to add something to that, though, the Lions' opportunity wasn't finished because they told me they'll call me, right? But they told me they would call me in the same way that the Giants said it. But the Lions were more they were more affirmative in the way that they said it. So I felt that something could come off that, but at the same time, the Japan opportunity came up. So I had basically two unfinished opportunities, or two opportunities that were competing against each other. And so I had to make a decision at one point when Japan was saying, hey, look, like, we need you to make your decision by middle of July, because that's when we have to report our roster. Now, that was going to be difficult for the Lions because training camp didn't start until the middle or end of July.
So could you have played and then, NFL want me, so I got to leave? Or once you sign that,
I could have done that, but you also got to remember that when they report their roster, they report their roster for the season. So there's no adding or subtracting. If you say that you're going to play for them for the year, they count you in as one of the 4 Americans that they can bring in. But if you decide to leave,
or they can only have 4 Americans
on the roster on that year.
On the total roster?
On the total roster.
So not even like practice squad, just
no. On the total roster. So if you say that, like, I'm going to leave after like a couple of weeks there, you've basically like left them in a place where we thought we were going to have 4. Now we only have 3, and we can't add on anybody else. So that's an automatic bridge burned.
Yeah, right.
That's an automatic breach burn, not only for that team, but for Japan in general, because Japan is one of those countries where people talk, right? And they take, trust, loyalty, and your word it's very, very important. So once you say, I'm here and I'm no longer here, they're going to tell other teams, this is what he did to us. And you can basically no longer come back to the league.
Can you tell us the first day you got over to Japan, man? Like, how was that experience? And then just answer that, man, if you can.
So during spring break, I went over to Japan to try out for the team, and they offered me. Obviously, they were like, "Oh, we like you. We're going to offer you a contract." But Japan was such a different place than anywhere that I'd ever lived, and that Japan's extremely safe. It's extremely clean, and the people are very polite. So it's an easy place to live. It can be an isolating place to live because the Japanese are very to themselves, and they're very reserved, but they will respect you no matter what. So it's so when you first come, right? But when you come as an athlete, you're coming into a bubble. You're coming with teammates, so it's not as lonely as immigrants that come by themselves. Or they come with 1 or 2 family members. When you come, like there's 60, 70 guys already that are your automatic teammate or your automatic friends, right? So my first couple of days, different guys are taking you out on different nights, because they're like, oh, like, you're our guest. Like, we got you on this night. Another person, like, oh, we got you on this night. My first week in Japan, we lived in company dormitories. So a lot of our players lived in the same place. And it would just be night after night, boom, 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 knock on the door.
The dormitory. Can you talk to us like we haven't we don't know exactly like. So can you explain it a little bit?
Yeah. So the structure of especially our team is that you play for a company team.
Okay.
And companies have or our team has company housing and company dormitory. Company housing are for married people. Company dormitories are for single people. Okay. Now that's basically a subsidized living to where, they will charge you a very, 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 very small rate, whether that be $100, $200 a month to live in those places. And you are equipped with your own room, and you share like a grand shower room, like the locker room. And then every floor has a kitchen, a bathroom, and a laundry room. Okay. So that was that. Now the company has moved away from company dormitories and company housing because it's financially better for them in today's structure. But we still, so when we first came, the American players lived in the company dormitories as well. But now we live in individual accommodations in the city and around the city. So it was living in company dormitory was a blessing, because I wasn't alone. I wasn't by myself in Japan. I had 60 other guys or 40 other guys that weren't married in the same dormitory. So whatever single people do around the world, the Japanese were trying to do that too, right? So like, hey, like they would give, come back from work, like boom, boom, boom. Hey, like, what you doing? Hey, I'm sitting in my room. Come on, let's go to sushi. Like, come on, let's go to this. Or come on, let's go to this. Let's go to the city. Let's do this. Let's do that. Come back and play video games. And so you build some of these connections from those times spent in company dormitories together. So
the sushi experience has to be a way another level.
It's another level. It's another level. It's
just much fresher, much like fresh.
I wouldn't even know what to compare it to. I would probably say like pizza in Italy, but it's almost a giving, right? Sushi in America is seen as like this delicacy, as this like, oh my God, we're going to have sushi. So let's like obviously after the Drake song, Nobu, 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 I just had dinner in LA. Right. And so that took sushi to another level. Right. But, and Nobu's restaurant is amazing. Right. I've never been, but I've had people who have been, and they say the restaurant's amazing, but the type of prices that they charge for their sushi, and that type of prices and the experience that they charge is, you can find a hole in the wall shop that would do the exact same thing in Japan for you. For 1/50th of the price, and then obviously here you have sushi experiences on such a different level, right? You have the small hole in the wall sushi, you have 7-Eleven sushi, you have the next grade sushi, and then you have the high grade, like your suit and tie sit down sushi. And being in Japan for this long, I've had the 3 levels, right? We had an opportunity a few years ago to eat at considered the best sushi restaurant in the world. I don't know if you've seen Jiro Dreams of Sushi. You've seen it. So we had an opportunity to eat at Jiro's restaurant. And he's a Michelin star restaurant in Tokyo. And it was Jiro's restaurant was where President Obama was taking for a state dinner when he was still president. So that experience alone is probably one of the best dining experiences that I've had, and I'm thankful that I'm able to do things like that while in Japan. So,
with you creating these bonds, and so I don't know if you're familiar with Canadian football. So when you go to Canadian, from what I've heard or spoken with other Canadian football players that are American football players, they get paid a little more than the locals. So is that the same process over there, or
the Canadian players get paid more than
the American players that go to Canadian football get paid a little more than your locals? Is that how it is in Japan?
So the way that the pay structure works in Japan is that the X League is actually not a professional league; it's a semi-pro league. But the structure of the league is that we play for company teams, so we are first and foremost employees of the company. Now, our company has a football department, so that is where our pay structure comes from. Is that the football department in our company is hidden under the human resources department. So we have a football general manager, and then we have a general manager of sports. So we're within a corporate structure. When it comes to pay structure, we are contractors. So we get paid as contractors. We get paid as contractors of the company, whereas our Japanese players, they get paid as employees of the company.
Okay.
So we get paid as contractors. They work in the football department. Our Japanese players get paid as employees that work in the sales department. Okay. They work in the engineering department. So the money itself doesn't come directly from playing football. The money comes as being a contractor of Fujitsu or an employee of Fujitsu.
Okay.
So the pay scale. So we get compensated equal to what a foreign contractor would get compensated. Okay. So let's say they brought in I don't want to use this example because a certain number will run into people's head, right? Let's say they brought in an IT guy from India, right? He is a contractor, so they would pay him based on what they're compensating their contractors. So we fit in somewhere between like low IT and high IT guys and low workers. So we fit in somewhere in between there, and it ranges on how many years really, because it's a company structure. Okay. Because if you don't perform well, they'll fire you. Mm-hmm. So it's not that you perform well and you all of a sudden get a ton of money. That's not, they expect a certain level of excellence from you, because then you only have four guys that you're bringing in. Mm-hmm. So if you are not better than the Japanese player that they have, they will get rid of you. Mm-hmm. So it's not a matter of like, oh, I'm a starter in Japan. No. They wouldn't bring you in if you weren't contributing something exponentially better to their team. Mm-hmm. And because they only have four players that they can bring in, you have to be judicious with what positions you want to bring in. Mm-hmm. So let's say, for example, my position, I play cornerback, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say that they get two Japanese corners that are amazing. Mm-hmm. Then my position becomes in jeopardy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. That makes sense.
Because now, why are we going to pay an American corner when we have two great Japanese corners that can do 90% of what you can do? Now they'll say, oh, we have 90% of corner, so let's go with Japanese at corner, but we have 80% of linebacker, so let's go get an American linebacker. So when people hit me up for opportunities, like, oh, I want to come to Japan, I play running back or I play this position, I'm like, Japan's not really looking for that position, because Japanese talent, they have skill players, right? Mm-hmm. They have quick running backs, so you don't offer them that. They have not so big running backs, but they have some big backs, right? But if you have a combination of both size and speed, you can excel in Japan. Mm-hmm. So if you're a receiver and you're a stud and you're 6'5" and you can run a little bit, you can excel because there are no 6'5" Japanese receivers. Does that make sense?
Crazy thing is, I didn't know anything about Japan Xleague until I ran into you and Trayshawn. And then it was like Siri. Like once I ran into you guys, it was like Siri. You know how you say something and then it just started popping up randomly. That's how it was. So I started finding out more people that were American that played in that league. Yeah. And, just asking questions and stuff like that. I don't know how, but it ended up being an opportunity for me to go play. I forget the team name.
Orbit Seagulls.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a secret, but we have our ears to the streets, so we know, right? Obic Seagulls, during the 2020 year,
And with that being said, right when I was going to sign a contract, and verbalize what was going to actually go on, we went from talking about maybe even a bonus to it being legit. But right when I got into my accident, man, everything just went away. Like I didn't hear from, and it's no disrespect to what was going on. He got to move to the next.
100%.
That he has to reveal, and if he's not doing his part and bringing the next person in,
he's going to get canned as well.
So, I've heard some numbers, and not to be in your business, you don't have to put exact numbers out there, but just to have some type of overall grand perspective of like, is this a fruitful league for people? Is it an opportunity league for people to actually go to the next level if they did want to go to the next level, or is it paying enough for them to actually, gain a living and be a actual level that is like, okay, this is where I want to be.
Yeah. I think the one thing that I will say about that is the numbers is not equal across the board. Mm-hmm. The numbers are also, it also depends on the value and what you bring, what you bring to the team and what you bring to the company that you're going to. Mm-hmm. Now, the Japanese understand minimum wage in America, and they understand how much it costs for a single person to live. Mm-hmm. So they will not pay you lower than what the cost of what a single person should be making to live. Mm-hmm. So you'll make above a certain amount to be able to at least take care of yourself. The one thing that they'll cover is they'll cover housing, they'll cover transportation, they'll cover insurance, they'll cover flights to and from. So everyone does that. Now, the little extra that comes after that, that's both negotiable, and that also fluctuates based on number of years you've been here, how many. But the true way, if you really want to get a full package, is the incentives that are tied around winning, right? So the base salary, they'll pay you, they'll pay you a stipend for the base salary, and that's that's okay money. It's not like, oh my God, like we're killing it. No. But if you tie some of your incentives to winning, then if you do win, then you're like, okay, like, yeah, like Japan's a thing, but you have to hit those incentives. You have to be an all Xleague player. You have to, you have to have contributed to
an all-Xleague player. So that's like MVP, correct?
MVP. Some teams have MVP incentives. Some teams,
is that their MVP or their Heisman?
So they have all Xleague players, just like first team All Pro.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
And there's only one team. There's one defensive team, one offensive team, and then there's Rookie of the Year and MVP of the league. So some guys do have MVP incentives in their contract. I can't speak to everyone's contract because I don't know. But I can only speak to my situation and our situation. In our situation in Japan, we're very thankful that we have a great leadership structure. And our situation has been good enough to where you can stay here for a few more years. And there are, because you don't practice every day, there's opportunities outside of football that's greater than whatever they're going to pay you. Some teams practice 3 days a week. Some teams practice 2 days a week. Some teams practice a little more than that. Right. So it's up to you to figure out how you're going to utilize those other days, right? If you want to pick up a virtual job, that'll also pay you a little more, right? So it's up to you to balance, because it is a semi-pro league, right? Is there a way where you could, you can be doing this and doing this at the same time, So
you have work-life balance.
There's true work-life balance, but you can also find other opportunities that'll supplement your income. That's what I'm trying to say. So in the past, for example, I have tutored at a private school here. I have interned within another department within the company here, so where I actually wore a suit and tie every day. I have, not every day, but for a couple times a week. I have privately taught English here. I've done other things as well to where, when, obviously this is my 10th season, thankfully, thank God. So now I'm in a place where the salary is like good enough to where I don't have to also be doing other things. Right. But before I got there, I needed a way to supplement my income. And that's what I did.
10 seasons, man, that's a long time, man. Time go by fast too. I know
it does.
15 years went by.
It went by very quickly.
What's some of the like? Give me like one or two if you don't mind, just like a memory.
Best memories. Obviously, I told you one earlier. Eating at you want football, or you just want life?
Japan.
Life Japan. So obviously, eating at a Michelin star restaurant.
Like football, like both.
I got you. I'll give you 3 and 3, right? So like eating at a Michelin star restaurant where they only serve 10 people a night. So being one of those 10 guests on that night, that was special. 10 people a night. That's it.
Do you have to buy out that? Like
no, it's just like, yeah, they just like they just serve 10 people a night, Okay. Yeah, and that's basically it. You buy out your, I think we started at like 8 or something, and then we finished at 10, and that was it for the night. You got to remember, Jiro's, I think he's in his 80s, right? So it's not like the man can work like hours and hours and hours. When his kids work a little longer, but for Jiro himself, like he's an old man. So I think being invited to the player's household is always a treat, because Japan is living accommodation in Japan is very small. So to be invited to someone's house is one of the highest honors that a Japanese person can pay you. So I've been invited to. You would think 10 years I should have been to over like 20 houses by now, but no, like I've been invited to about 8 to 10 houses. It's a really high honor. Is that we are, and obviously being the next step of that is them inviting you to their wedding. And I've been to a few Japanese weddings as well. So in terms of cultural, that's the next phase. And then just overall living in Japan has been fascinating to learn about their political system, their social structure, what makes them tick as a people, what are their fears, what are their interests, what are their just inspirations. In terms of on the field football, we have had a nice string of successful seasons, and we have 6 championships in the last 9 years. So we have gone on a nice little streak here, and obviously Trayshawn and I we've trained with you before, so you can kind of feel the level of caliber and talent that we expect and that we're trying to feel. The same way that we train with you and the energy that we bring to those training sessions is the same energy that we bring to practices here. So we try to elevate the playing level in Japan as well. And not beyond those 6 championships, we've gone to the championship game every single year that I've been here. So we've always had a chance to win it. And also on the field is that we've seen a dramatic increase in the talent level. Like we've seen our guys get better. Like we're like, man, when you first came, you weren't like this, and then, and now like they're really solid players that are getting opportunities. We just had a player a few hours ago. He just left to London, and he's gonna go try out for the International Player Development Program for the NFL. So there's opportunity. We have a player right now on our team that's playing in Canada. We have and there's 4 guys in the Xleague that are playing in Canada. So there's opportunity. So I'm happy to be a part of that development and growth in Japan.
No, that's dope, man. That's dope, man. Being from Nigeria and then moving to the States and then moving, to Japan, to play ball, man. That's 3 different countries, man, that you got to experience.
Continents.
Continents.
Yeah.
3 different continents that you got to experience, man, and a lot of people don't even get to travel, to the next state over. So,
and you gotta think. I've lived in those countries on those continents for a long time, right? So it's not like I just went there for a year and left, right? I've been in Japan for 9.5 years. I lived in Nigeria for 10 years. I lived in the States for 12 years, right? So this is enough time to be able to grasp culture, to be able to grasp politics, and to be able to grasp what makes a people tick. Right. So I have a unique perspective when it comes to understanding Asian culture, African culture, and American culture. And I hope that whatever comes after football, that I'm able to use those experiences in the next phase of life as well. So
before we get off of football, man, I wanted to just see, like, what could you tell the man or the athlete watching this? How could they get looked at for an opportunity to go to the Japan Xleague?
Yeah, I think constantly reaching out to the league is a big thing. The league likes to reach out itself and recruit players. But if you right now, we are in season, so the next wave of guys won't start looking at the next wave of guys until February or March. So just reaching out, go on the Xleague website, find the team's Instagram page and send them a DM, or find other places and find a guy and see if they can connect you and see if anyone's looking and go from there. Send your highlight.
You don't need an agent for this league.
You don't need don't let someone convince you that you need an agent. You don't need an agent. You can do it all by yourself.
Okay.
You do it all by yourself. But I know that there are some people that will help guide you in terms of finding you a place.
Okay, so like, what would you want, like, the biggest message
Yeah.
for the viewer to kind of take off of this platform, man, from
Yeah.
listening to our conversation?
Just keep going. Keep going.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of life is about just showing up on time and putting your best foot forward every day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a majority of it, because a lot of people don't have what my coach used to call stick-to-itiveness, which
Mm-hmm.
is just like staying on it, like 10 toes down, staying on it, staying on it, staying on it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, when, they'll be like, oh, like, but I've worked hard 5 days in a row and I don't see any results, so I'm gonna stop. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So for the youth out there, it's just whatever comes your way, keep going, keep going, keep going. You got it. And find spaces to breathe and just keep going. Find a good support system and keep going. So that's it, really. Just keep going.
I like that message, man, because it's a lot of times I could have personally gave up and I didn't, and there's a lot of times you could have personally gave up and you didn't. Just for instance, I got into an accident, man. Depressed, during COVID, you can't really have people come to the hotel room. Not the hotel room, the hospital room. Being there to support you. So being in those rough times by myself, kind of put you in a depression mode and kind of wanted you to just linger in it. But I had mental toughness to where, like, I had to, when they told me to lay down, sit down, I wasn't listening. I made sure when they left, I did my own, walking around. That's how I was able to get back to work. It was probably stupid, but I was able to heal much faster, recover much faster. And, just to keep it with football, man, I left some opportunities on the table to where I could have definitely went to these big time schools out of high school, but my grades. And then I had opportunity to go overseas to play Japan Xleague, but I got into an accident. But before I got the opportunity, I was kind of 4 years in without, having a contract with anybody. I got calls and I got, contacts with people, but as far as in coming in for a opportunity to play, it was out of sight, out of mind, really. But I was able to instill in my mind, like, I really want this. I'm going to chase this down. I'm going to make sure I cried, shedded blood, all that, man. But still was able to impute in my mind, hey, if I want it, I'm going to go get it. Had the opportunity to go overseas, like I said, with the accident. So that wasn't really what I was put on this earth to do. I think this podcast is something that I can give back to the youth and actually be productive and having, these guys, including myself, that played at college level and also played at the pro level, to kind of give you game on why you should do this, or what to look for when you go to this level, or just little things that they had to go against as far as obstacles, so that if you see it, you don't have to go through the same thing, so it'd be a much more efficient and less mistake. Once you see something similar that we went through, you can, I've seen Paul, or I've seen, Alrilwan go through with this problem. So, man, I appreciate you guys for, listening, man. And that's the biggest message, man. Keep going and stay positive, and, just find that room to breathe, so that you can, inhale the positive, exhale the negative, man. And that definitely will go a long way. Man, I appreciate you stopping by, man, giving out some game. It's always good talking to you, man. You have a great positive vibe, man, and it just rubs off on everybody, man. And you had a unique story, and a lot of people, would love to grasp and hear it, man. We could have definitely went longer, man. I think we definitely need to do a part two, just because we didn't go in depth on, your actual culture, and then experiencing the culture of the States, and then experiencing the actual culture to the Japan, So if we can, tap into that a little later too, man, I would definitely love to do that for the viewers, for yourself, and actually get to know you a little more, man, just because we friends, and I definitely didn't know all of this. So the fact that I was kind of learning as I was, having you on this podcast, that's a big thing. So that concludes the show, man. We out.
Tap in. Yeah, you gotta tap in. Yeah, you gotta tap in.